Ooh.
making program that I
Yeah.
did. So that was a lot of fun.
Nice.
I really, really enjoyed that a lot. So that was part of this series. And then we did the cinnamon dough ornaments, which I also made, and it was a lot of fun.
Nice.
So that's all part of this program series, Scents of the Season, which are all projects that bring a nice scent to your home.
Additionally nice. Oh man.
Yes. So it was fun. It's been a busy week. And we had the virtual Women's Expo too this week.
Right. Yeah, I totally missed it. How did it go? How did you guys set it up?
We used a platform called Feedloop,
Okay.
and that allowed us to have virtual exhibitor booths.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone got their own space, and then they had to, promote their program or promote their products. They can make sell sheets and then link to their website, and it had a chat feature where you could chat with them about their products and stuff.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah, so hey, we would like to do it in person, but it was something.
No, and it sounds like it really worked out, because if you had the chat feature and you had like questions or you wanted to order something custom, like you could totally do that. Awesome.
You could totally do that. And even for the vendors who did not have a website, they could chat, and people did order, and then they either had Venmo or PayPal or some way to accept the money, or say I'll deliver it, you give me the cash sort of thing. We're happy we got to do it this year. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the program. I'm here with Maria Castilla this morning. She has her sewing machine ready to go. I am here at the library. My name is Amber Gagliardi. I'm a librarian here. And we were just chatting about the Women's Expo we had on Thursday. And it was a lot of fun. And Maria used to be part of that. That's how we connected with her. So we were just chatting about that, and we will get started with the program in probably about 3 or 4 minutes. So if you have any questions before we start, you can go ahead and put it in the chat box. Oh, Maria, something else that I found, and we could absolutely do this throughout the program. So Zoom made a lot of upgrades. So now I do have the ability to allow patrons to speak and ask a question, as long as they have a microphone or built into their device, which most devices do. So if anyone has a question, not only can you just type it into the chat box, but you can raise your hand, which is a feature that you'll see, and then I can allow you to talk. So there's 2 options to ask questions throughout this program.
Very cool. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to get your question right when you're typing it. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you want to explain something, and it's nice to have it verbal. Cool.
Right. And if you just want to tell a story or have a conversation, or if you are sewing along with us, it's a lot to manage your device and your sewing machine and your materials. So we can make that a lot easier and just go ahead and allow you to speak. So we can test that out at any point. So next to your name, there's a little raise your hand button. If you press that or type in the chat box that you have a question, we could absolutely allow you to speak. So we could test that out. Cool. It worked great for our program last week. So
nice.
Exciting things happening with Zoom. Hi, welcome. If you just joined us, we are going to get started in a few moments. If you have all your materials that you picked up, you can go ahead and get them out. You'll also need a sewing machine. If you are not prepared to sew along with us, you can certainly watch, and this is being recorded, so you could always rewatch after. If you are sewing along, Maria will be doing each step, so you can go ahead and follow along that way as well. Whatever works best for you works for us. If you have any questions, you can type them into the chat box. You can also raise your hand, and we can allow you to talk and ask a question. So just let us know. We'll get started in about, I'm going to give everyone a couple minutes today. So we'll get started in about 90 seconds here.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Ah, sorry.
Okay, Maria, it is 5 after. So I will be here throughout the program to answer any questions or alert you to any questions that come up. But I'm going to go ahead and turn off my camera and I'll check back in with you.
All right, sounds good. Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Maria. I am your, sewing connoisseur here today. And today's project is actually really cool. We're going to be making some drawer refreshers. So they're basically these little tiny little bean bag type of things. And they're really cool. They're these little pillows, and they're stuffed with potpourri that I made here at home. I like to usually do it through the holidays just because I like to put it in like the gift boxes and just have it kind of like release its aroma as we're opening presents, and it's just really nice. So it just brings a lot of holiday spirit, and it ties in with the library's programs this whole week about scents for the holidays. So so this is what we're going to be making today. I chose really fun, festive fabrics for this project, just because, it is the holiday season, and why not? And you can also just use any type of fabric if you want to give this, let's say, to, a teenager or something. Choose something that they would like, it doesn't have to necessarily be holiday fabric. It could be any type of fabric. And like I said, these are drawer refreshers, so they just pop them into their drawers, and then that way it keeps their socks smelling fresh or holiday. Other things you can do with this is make potpourri depending on what scents you like too. So we'll start with the potpourri. I'm gonna just guide the camera downward a little bit. Perfect. All right, so I hope everybody can see this clearly, but I chose a really big glass jar that I found at Michael's. And it usually fits about maybe 6 to 8 cups of potpourri. And what I do is actually I mix a bunch of raw rice, just straight out of the bag. I put it in here and I mix different spices. Now, for me, I really love the smell of Cardamom Pods. They're very flowery. They're a little bit more like, I don't know, it's like spicy, flowery. I really love them. I find them at my local Asian market. There's actually one in Selden, I believe. It is, I think it is Selden. If it's not Selden, it's technically Center Reach, but yeah, so basically they're these little tiny pods. I'll show them to you. And you just kind of squash them with the bottom of a spoon. And they release this wonderful peppery, flowery scent. It's really nice. So I put some of those in there. I also go to either BJ's or a really good place to find whole spices on the cheap. Your Latin markets. Your Latin markets will have like bucket loads of whole spices, and they're not as expensive as in your regular like Stop and Shops. So I have allspice here, which I love. It's a very sweet, peppery type of smell. Of course, cinnamon sticks. Now, when I do cinnamon sticks in my potpourri, I try to break them up into smaller pieces because as you can see, the satchels, and again, if I didn't mention this little satchels or the little pillows, they can be made in different sizes. You know, you can make them bigger, you can make them smaller, really whatever fits your need or your want. But these particular ones end up being about like 3.5 inches by 3.5. So I really like to make sure that my cinnamon stick is going to fit in my little pillow here, because obviously if it's not, then you know you're going to have a hard time closing it up. So I really want to make sure that my cinnamon sticks, if I'm going to add them in here, are going to be the right size. So I either, you know, snap them, or, you know, I just make sure to choose the ones that are a little bit shorter than the others and include those in my potpourri. Now, I also do use, and you'll see in the potpourri that we included in your kits, some of them will have pieces of anise star. Now, I personally don't like the licorice scent of anise star, but a lot of people do, and a lot of people associate them with the holidays. So, you know, I made sure to include some of that. If you don't like that scent, or you know the person that doesn't, the person that you're giving it to doesn't like the scent, you can always just take it out and it's not a big deal. Other things that you can use in there is nutmeg, cloves. I put whole cloves in there too. And really all you're going to do is just put it in the jar, mix it all up with like a little fork or a spoon, whatever you have on hand. And then we're going to do, oh, this smells so good. It's empty now, but it smells really good. It smells like fresh baked cookies. I love it. But the other thing that you can do to make it a little bit more potent in the smell is add essential oils, or add, if you have it in your kitchen, or if you want to buy it, you could use just extract from your local market. I used orange extract to kind of intensify the orangey citrus type of smell for my potpourri. Usually what I do, and what you can do too, is I use orange peels that have been discarded from, you know, juicing or just giving kids a snack. Orange peels, lemon peels, clementine peels are also pretty good. And I just leave them out to dry for maybe a night. probably like overnight. You can leave them out to dry just in a bowl somewhere or just flat on like a cookie sheet. And they're going to dry up. And the really nice thing about the peels is that when you do mix them with the different essential oils, they're going to kind of soak up that nice scent, and they're going to really help in contain that scent in there. Now, if you don't like the orange peel idea, the rice is actually going to do the same thing. It's going to retain that oiliness and that scent from the essential oils, and it's going to kind of hold it in together for you. So, so if you notice your potpourri that you got in your packet, it's a little bit oily or a little bit, moist, if you would say. It's because it does have the oils in there. So I particularly used sweet almond oil as a carrier oil. It's a nice oil that's just going to neutralize everything, and it's not going to get like sticky or rancid, I guess, because some oils do tend to do that if you leave them out. So this one doesn't tend to do that. And then you just mix it with whatever you want. I use the orange extract. If you want to use other essential oils or other herbs that you want to infuse in there, absolutely do it. Rosemary, thyme, what else? Sage is a really nice smelling one. I love sage. Those are all things that you can include, and you can, just mix, match. Oh, lavender. Lavender is also a very popular one, to bring a calming scent to your sock drawer. So, so you could do a lot of things with the potpourri. I think the most important part there is just to have something to really soak in that scent that you want to, put in your little pillow. Whether it's rice, and rice is a really good filler because, again, not only does it hold that scent, but it's very, very cost effective. So you don't have to fill everything with only spices. You can just use a bunch of rice and mix it in with all the stuff that you want to mix in there, and it's really going to go a longer way. Now, any questions on the potpourri, on what I like to use, how I like to use it, anything at all? I'm here if you have any questions on that.
I think that was a really good idea with the orange peels and the lemon peels, because it's a great way to just reuse things. So it's a great idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And you know what? If you do use like a fabric that's more translucent or that's more sheer, and you can see the potpourri that's in there, it's going to look really nice. Because you can see all the little pieces of orange peel and all this stuff. So if you use a very sheer fabric, that would look really nice too, actually, now that I'm thinking of it. All right, so for our little pillows, you have enough fabric to make 4 or maybe 2 of a larger size. It depends on what you want to do, but you have enough to make 4 of the 3.5 by 3.5. So once again, this is my little pillow. Now the key here is to not fill your pillow all the way. So if you can see here, my pillows are filled like maybe halfway. See that? So this is going to allow you to close things easily because I like to put a border around mine. So if you take a look at my sample here, when I closed it, I made a border around the whole thing, and it just kind of makes it look a little bit more done up, a little fancier. So to do that, you're going to need to be able to push that potpourri to the side so it doesn't get caught under your sewing needle. Okay, so it is important for it to not be filled the whole way. Now, if you choose not to do a border like I did, and you just want to sew it with a regular hand sewing manual needle, and you just want to stitch it up where the little hole is, that's okay too. And that will allow you to put in more potpourri. So it really just depends on what you would like to do. But for my purposes of this tiny pillow that I have here and the instructions that I gave you, we are only going to fill the pillow about halfway. Okay. And that would be maybe like a tablespoon, if that, maybe 2 teaspoons. But it's not a lot. So your potpourri is definitely going to go a longer way if you do that too. All right, so I'm going to guide you down here. All right, so can you guys see this well? I hope so. If not, let us know.
Yep.
Okay, good. All right, so you might have received a piece of fabric kind of like this one, or similar or different patterns. But for this demonstration, I'm going to do my Christmas with Santa Claus pattern. All right, and what we're going to do is we're going to measure 4 inches by 4 inches in our fabric. So if you have a cutting mat, you can certainly use this as your guide and say, okay, this is 4 inches and I'm going to cut here. Or you can use your ruler like this one, or you can use your measuring tape. Anything really works here, but for my purposes, I'm going to use my ruler, and I'm really just going to show you by marking with my marker the lines that I'm going to create so I could cut. Okay, and again, there's different ways of cutting your fabric. You can use regular fabric scissors. You can use your rotary cutter. The rotary cutter is only recommended if you do have a cutting mat, of course, because it will mark up your table and it won't, it'll dull the blade on your rotary cutter if you don't use the actual mat that it's intended to be used in. So, so there's a lot of different ways. If you are going to go with your scissors and you're going to mark up your fabric to make sure that you have enough, or however you want to do it, you can use a fabric marker. You can use tailor's chalk, or you can use like a pen on the wrong side of the fabric, so you won't be able to see it on the other side. Now, I always use just a regular dry erase marker to show you guys, but just remember, do not use any markers that are not intended to be washable for fabric, especially if you don't want the lines to be seen at the end. Just because the dry erase or the permanent or the magic marker or the Crayola marker you might be using may not wash off completely off of the fabric. So I use the dry erase just to show you guys. It's a little bit clearer on the camera. So just, use or be warned. Use something that is appropriate for your fabric, okay? Alrighty, so I'm gonna start, and I'm gonna go ahead and mark this 4 inches. So I'm gonna go this way. And now from there, I'm going to go another 4 inches to the side. Now, I like to do it this way as opposed to, cutting each piece for like individually, just because I think it saves you a little bit more time. So I just like to mark things up first and then cut to kind of save me a little bit more time. So this is, okay, so this piece over here is only 3 inches. And then here, I'm gonna go and say, okay. So, and then you can turn your fabric to make it easier for you to make your markings. If you have a larger piece of fabric, that might not be the easiest way. You might have to just cut your strips of 4 inches and then cut again. Another set of 4 inches, depending on what you're doing. But let's see, we're gonna go here and we're gonna say this is 4 inches. Okay. So I marked up my fabric on the wrong side of the fabric, And as you can see there, I can now begin to kind of just either cut with my rotary cutter or with my fabric scissors. I'm going to go ahead and do it with my rotary cutter. That's what I'm most comfortable with. And I find it to be a little bit quicker. So I'm going to do this. I'm just going to go 1, 2, and 3. So the nice thing is that since I made those lines, you know, it was just easy for me to just swing my ruler and just cut however many times I needed to cut. Now, the other cool thing is that since I have everything marked up the same way, I can just put all of the fabric on top of each other, line them up as best as you can, and then just say, okay, this was my 4-inch mark, cut, and then that's it. You kind of already cut 3 pieces all at once instead of having to do them one by one. Okay, so now you have 3 pieces here. And of course, that was just my piece of scrap fabric. Side note on this, you can use any fabric you want, especially if you have a lot of scraps. Use your scraps, you know, make it fun. I always try to see what I can do with my scraps because I have so many of them. So this is a good scrap project. This is actually pretty great for that. So right here I have 2, and you will need pairs of 2s, so 1 for each side. So pairs of 2s. This one does not have a pair, but I had 1 cut already. Now, this one, as you can see, it has a jagged edge. Okay, so what I did there is I actually used pinking scissors. Now the pinking scissors, I wish I had them right next to me. I totally forgot to put them next to me. But the pinking shears are basically, they're going to look like regular scissors, but instead of having 2 straight edges, one edge actually has grooves in it. So when you cut, it's going to create this little zigzag pattern. And that zigzag pattern helps the fabric to not fray as much. So really, it's very helpful for fabrics that just, you know, anytime that you kind of just try to pull at it or kind of just, you know, handling it, it kind of frays easily. That's an excellent tool you can use for that, so it doesn't fray as much. You can get pinking scissors at your local fabric shop. They have them. They will know what you're talking about. And again, very, very helpful for anything that does fray. So I do like to use them a lot for smaller projects like this, just so it helps me, you know, keep all my fabric nice and neat and it doesn't run away from me. Okay, so that's that. Now I'm going to use a few that I have pre-sewn too, but I'm going to show you how we're going to line these up. So, okay, you have your right side of the fabric, which is the brighter side, and then you have the wrong side of the fabric. Now, if you're using a plain fabric with no patterns, there's really no wrong or right side. Both of the sides are just going to be a solid color. So you really don't need to make sure that the right sides are together, etc. But if you are using something with a pattern like this or any other pattern, you're going to see that one side is going to be dull and one side is going to be bright. The bright side is the right side and the dull side is the wrong side. Okay. So we're going to match these up as best as possible. It doesn't have to be perfect. And we're going to go ahead and pin. Okay. you don't have to use many pins, just 1 or 2 is fine. Just helps you so the fabric doesn't shift. Okay, and I'm just going to redirect you over to my machine here. Let me know if that's okay. Let me just move some of this other stuff. Sorry, guys. Move this over. Okay. All right, so I hope that's good. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to sew starting in the middle of the top, or when you put it down to be fed, it's going to be the side really. But we're going to start kind of at the middle, and we're going to sew to probably about like a 1/4 inch off of the edge, because we are going to be using 1/4 inch seam allowances. So about a 1/4 inch. Then we're going to turn our fabric, go down, turn it again, go the other way, turn other way, and then we're going to leave a little gap, maybe about 2 fingers worth, or about 1 inch or 2, for you to be able to turn your project. Okay, so that's always very important, to leave enough room for you to turn your project. If you don't, it's going to be a little bit hard for you to just, you know, maneuver your fabric and then fill it. But about like 2 fingers worth, or maybe 3, 2 inches would be fine. Okay, so we're going to start. We're going to use a straight stitch, nothing crazy, something simple, straight stitch. And like I said, we're going to start kind of in the middle of that one side, and we're going to use a 1/4 seam allowance, 1/4 inch. Okay, you can tell that it's a 1/4 inch with your stitch plate. Some of them have your measurements on there, so you can tell exactly what you're doing. My 1/4 inch starts over here. It happens to line up with the foot. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do that. Okay, now you don't need a fancy machine like mine. My machine just so happens to be a digital machine. It is a Janome Skyline S6. By no means do you need to have this particular machine. You can use a regular mechanical machine. And of course, if this is your newbie to sewing, or you want to brush up on some of your skills, or how to, you know, thread anything, or bobbin troubles, troubleshooting, you can always go to the Sewing for Beginners 101 video that we made for you guys. And it's, I believe, posted in the YouTube channel for Middle Country Public Library. So you're able to just go back and take a look at some of the sewing essentials I show you there, on how to thread your machine, how to troubleshoot a little bit, and really just get to know your machine a little bit better. Like I said, that particular tutorial is for a mechanical machine, meaning that it's one of those that you have a foot pedal that is going to assist you in, you know, feeding your fabric and sewing. This one is kind of just start and stop, kind of like those new cars that have like the push start buttons. It's kind of like that. So it has a little bit more bells and whistles, but for what we're doing, it's very basic. We don't need a super fancy machine like this one. Okay, so we're going to get started. Like I said, a simple straight stitch is going to be fine. If you do have a fabric that frays, I do recommend that you zigzag around the edges, and I'll show you that too, just so you guys know what I'm talking about. Okay, so we're going to get started. Once again, 1/4 inch seam allowance. We're going to start about halfway down your fabric, and there you go. Now to turn your fabric, you're going to stop about a 1/4 inch before you get to the edge of your fabric. Okay, your raw edge, and you're going to just simply lift your foot with your needle on the down position, Okay, and you're going to turn your fabric. The reason why we do that is because with your needle in the down position, it secures your fabric. See that? I can move it any which way and it's not going to ruin my project. Well, not ruin, but it's not going to misalign anything. So yeah, so you just make sure that your needle's in the down position and then you can shift your fabric any way you want. We are just shifting it ever so slightly so we can continue down the side, okay? Okay, once again, we are just going to lift up our foot and go ahead and turn the fabric. Okay, so there's one of two things that you could do here. You could either use a back stitch to go ahead and just secure those last stitches, or you could just leave it alone. I'm gonna leave it alone, but I will show you again on another piece how we do the back stitching and that how it's gonna secure your stitch, okay? So I'm gonna cut my thread right there. And as you can see, I left about 3 fingers worth of space so I can turn my fabric, okay? Now before I do any turning, I'm just gonna inspect to see that everything got sewn together and that I don't have any gaps. That's very important. You can take your straight pins out. Now, for those of you that are using a fabric that has fraying, that is a little bit more delicate, and you just want to make sure that when you do turn it, it doesn't kind of just pull apart, you can go ahead and switch to a zigzag stitch. Okay, and the zigzag stitch is going to just make sure that you secure your raw edges so they don't fray. So when I talk about fraying, I talk about this. See that? Like it kind of just starts pulling apart. Now the zigzag stitch is gonna make it harder for that to happen, okay? Alrighty, so again, we're gonna make sure that we leave these little markers open. So you can either mark it with a marker or you could put your straight pin in there to be like, hey, stop sewing here, you know? So I did that, put a little marker on there, and we're just gonna do zigzag stitches, okay? So you're gonna do the zigzag stitch, I'll show you, right on the gap that you left. So the 1/4 inch seam allowance that you left, you're gonna just go on top of that and you're going to go ahead and kind of fill that space with the zigzag stitch. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay. Again, we're going to turn our fabric. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so as you can see here, okay, I did my zigzag stitch to fill in that seam allowance, okay? And again, it's not perfect, but it is gonna help with the fraying, okay? So it's gonna make it a little bit harder for that fabric to just unravel on you. Okay, and I'm just cutting my little spare ends here. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and turn my project over. Now, one thing I did not tell you at the beginning is that for this project, you're going to need a funnel, okay? Whether it is a piece of construction paper that you just turned into a funnel or a regular funnel, but you're gonna need one to be able to fill your little pillow here. Okay, so right now I'm turned the fabric inside out, or right side out really. Okay, and with my fingers, I'm just making sure that the corners are pushed in and everything is fine. Now, something I skipped or I didn't tell you was this gap. So let me turn this again to the wrong side to where you see your stitches. Now, one thing you can do to make this a little bit simpler for you is press, hold on, sorry. So see the opening? Now, when we're ready to sew it closed, we're just gonna need to match up, you know, the raw edges so that everything sews up nicely. So something you can do is just take your iron and just press this like so. Okay, so it kind of marks the place where you're going to sew it shut. That I find pretty helpful. You can skip that step if you're, you know, confident that you're gonna, you know, get both sides together. But it's something you can do to make it a little neater. It's not required, but you can do it. It's an optional step. Okay, but see that? That's how you're gonna wind up having your pillow. So when we're gonna close it, we're gonna just match it up this way. So that little pressing is gonna actually help a little bit in aligning up that fabric. So I have a few loose ends here. Okay, so now we have our little pillow. I've pushed my corners out as nicely as I could. Okay, and now I'm gonna take my funnel. Okay. And now you see that the funnel fits kind of nicely in there. It's nice and snug. Now, I didn't have extra potpourri because I actually spent it on all my Christmas presents. So I'm just going to take a little bit of rice and put it in there. So I'm just going to take, oh, it's nice. Now you're going to be careful. Now you're going to do this. I'm doing it with my hand because there's nothing on the rice. But, whoops. But as you can see, you can spill it everywhere if you use your hand. But you could just, with a tablespoon or whatever you're measuring with, you're just going to go ahead and fill it about halfway. Not a lot. Okay. And I'll show you what. You can even do like a quarter of the way. Doesn't really matter. However you want to use your potpourri is fine. But okay, so I have this there about a quarter of the way. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the cinnamon sticks that I like to use are usually about the width of the project, like that, right? So when I put it in, it fits in nicely. And it's not like fitting oddly or it's like diagonal. It's just, it's going to sit nicely. and that's going to help you a lot when you're trying to sew this shut. Okay, so I put that in there. I put my cinnamon stick. If you want to put your star anise or anything in there, you can go ahead, or just, you know, simply put whatever teaspoon or tablespoon of potpourri you want in there. Just make sure it doesn't go more than halfway. Okay. All right, so I'm going to let you guys do that if you're sewing along with me. Okay, I'm just going to clean up my act over here. Okay, so now that you've done that, we're going to go ahead and sew this guy shut. So like I mentioned, you can do one of two things. You can just take a regular needle and just go ahead and sew this little part shut, like the opening shut, or you can go ahead and make a border. And that's basically it. But or you could just, you know, with the machine, just shut it here. So there's quite a few options. I like to do the border. I think it looks nicer, and it looks more detailed, I guess. You know, there's more attention to detail on it. So I really like that. But we're going to start in the corner, the upper corner, upper left corner, right corner of the project, and we're just going to sew a straight line, and then we're going to turn, and then we're going to turn as we did previously. The trick here is that when you are turning, you are going to also turn your potpourri. So I'll show you how to do that. It's a little tricky, but it can be done. Okay, so all right, so we're going to start right up here, and again, 1/4 inch seam allowance. Oops. If you were doing a zigzag, make sure to switch your machine back to a straight stitch, because we do not want a zigzag here. We want a straight stitch. Okay, so I'm going to switch my machine back. Okay. All right, and we're going to turn. So, okay, so when you're sewing here, I don't know if you can see this, but you can see that my potpourri is all down here, okay? So what I want to do is turn my potpourri so it's out of the way of my machine. So I'm going to just, you know, ever so slightly shake it, maneuver it, so I know that there's no rice or no spices that are going to be caught in my needle. Okay. So you're just going to push your finger along, and you can feel it. It's all done by feel. So you're just going to shift it. Okay. And now I'm ready to go down this side. Okay. Turn my fabric and turn my potpourri. It can be a little bit tricky because, you know, you have a lot of small little tiny pieces in there, but just do the best you can as long as it's out of the way from the sewing foot. You're pretty good. Okay. turn it again. Okay, I feel some rice over here. Let's make sure we didn't get all that rice out. And once again, if you have your needle in the down position, it's going to help you pin your fabric in place. So you're free to kind of maneuver your little pillow as you want to get that potpourri in the area that you need it to be. Okay. Okay. Here we go. One more time. Okay, and right here, I'm just going to use my back stitch to secure that last stitching. And cut. Okay. Now I'm just going to make sure that there's no frays, no. Everything should be in. Okay, and there you have it. You have your little pillow. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and do this one more time, and I'm going to show you the back stitching that you can do for the beginning of the project if you had trouble turning your project over. Sometimes what happens when you're turning your project is that you might pull a little bit too hard, and then you're going to start to see the project kind of coming undone. So you're going to be like, oh no, you know, my fabric's coming undone, you know, what do I do? And it's very simple. You just are going to turn it back over, and you're going to go over that stitch. But to avoid that altogether, you're just going to back stitch to get where you want. So let me just cut my fabric one more time. Okay, and I'll show you. Let's see, make sure this is 4 inches. Okay, so we're going to do 4x4s once again. Two. And then make sure. Okay, this is perfectly 4 inches. Wonderful. So we're just gonna go. Now, a good tip for you guys too is going to be whenever you are using rotary cutters, make sure that you replace your blade every so often. I like to change it every like 10 or 15 projects. I think it really, especially if I'm using like more like thicker fabric, just because it just dulls out my my blade. Like right now, it really needs to be switched out. It could barely cut through like my single layer of fabric. So that's a maintenance thing that you can do. That's easy, just every like 10 to 15 projects, maybe even 20, switch out the blade, okay? It'll be nice and easy, and it'll keep your fabric from fraying too much, or from, you know, handling a little bit, or ripping or anything like that. Okay, so we have our 2 squares once again. We're going to do right sides together. I don't know if you can hear that, but my kids are babbling like crazy. They're they just turned 1.5 years yesterday. And yeah, no, they're just like little parrots. But anyway, so I hear them through the vent. It's really funny. But anyway, back to our project. Okay, so we're gonna start again, straight stitch, 1/4 inch allowance, and we're gonna start about in the middle. And we're gonna turn our fabric as we go. Now, like I said, I'm gonna show you how we're gonna secure those stitches before we even start anything. So we're gonna go ahead and do a couple of stitches with your manual lever. Okay, so that's gonna look like this. You're gonna turn it towards you once, twice, 3 times, 4 times maybe. Let's do 4 times. Okay, 4 times. We're gonna do 4 times, but now you're gonna back stitch and you're going to go ahead and press. There's different ways. Let me just back that over. Depending on your machine could have a lever that you press down and that you have to keep held down as you sew. Your machine might have a button that you have to keep pressed continually, or your machine might have a setting where you press it once and then you put start and then it back stitches. Okay, so there's a lot of different things. The other thing too is that you can do it with your manual lever. I don't recommend that as much. If your machine has the option to do a back stitch where you can do the little lever and you pull it down and then you use your presser foot to your presser pedal to go ahead and sew, use that. Sometimes when you back stitch using your manual lever, it can sometimes tangle the thread. I'm not sure why, but sometimes I've seen that happen. So just try to use the back stitch as it's intended with your machine, whether it be a lever, a button, or anything like that, okay? But the back stitch little icon, I don't know if you can see it, but it's basically, you're gonna see a little, let's see if I can draw it in a piece of paper or something, which I don't have handy. But it basically is an arrow that's kind of doing like a U-turn, almost like if you were seeing in a traffic, you know, in the street, in a traffic light or something. It looks kind of like a U-turn, and that's your back stitch button. Like I said, sometimes it's a button or sometimes it's a lever. Sometimes you'll see the lever over here or back here, wherever your machine is, and you just have to hold it down or press it to be able to activate that back stitch. And that back stitch is going to secure your stitching for your fabric to, you know, be able to do that. We use that to secure it at the beginning, or you use that to secure it at the end. So you have like a nice, strong, reinforced stitch. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and back stitch a couple. 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. And then I'm just going to continue as I would normally with my stitch. Okay, 1/4 seam. Now here I made a little tiny mistake and I went a little bit before, a little bit after my 1/4 inch seam. So I don't have enough seam allowance for myself. So what I'm going to do is back stitch a couple of times. 1, 2, okay, and then turn my fabric. Okay, just because I want to keep that 1/4 inch seam allowance throughout, to make sure that I don't have any gaps in my fabric at the end. Okay, turn. Okay. Okay, once again, I stopped because I wanted to leave my gap. Now I'm going to back stitch 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm just going to simply cut it. Okay. And now my stitching is reinforced and it won't come undone no matter, well, if you pull it really hard, it will, but, but for our purposes, we're not going to pull it that hard because, you know, we want to be gentle. Okay, so now I'm going to cut my tail ends. Okay, all right, wonderful. And then we're just going to turn this guy over one more time. Okay. Now remember, at this point, you're checking for, well, you're turning it over so you can fill it, but you're also checking for any gaps in your fabric, meaning any fabric that wasn't sewn together, any holes, anything like that. You want to look for that. And if you need to go over it to fix it, you just go over it again. It's not a big deal. Okay, you're not going to see all the stitching, so it's really okay. So like right here, I have a little phrase that got caught in there, so I'm just going to pull them out. Okay, wonderful. And then I'm going to go ahead and fill again. Take my funnel, put it in the little hole. And if you don't have a funnel, you can always just use a piece of like cardstock or paper and just kind of like, you know, roll it up and, you know, use that as your funnel. If you're very good at keeping your hands still, you could just use your tablespoon and do it. I shake all over the place, so yeah, I'm not very good with that portion of it. All right, so we're going to do that. Now, sometimes your funnel will get a little bit clogged up. You can just take the tip of your scissors or your pen or whatever you have on hand to kind of just wiggle it in there. There we go. Because sometimes it does get clogged. And a reminder, when you are using your funnel, just to make sure that the hole in your funnel is large enough to accommodate those larger spices. Because sometimes, like this one, if your allspice berry is too big, it won't come out the other end. So just, you know, make sure that your funnel is big enough to see, and it gets stuck to, there you go. But yeah, just another side note, and the many side notes I give. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and put the cinnamon stick. Let's see if we can pick one. Okay, that one's good. Alrighty, so we're gonna start once again at the opposite corner. So that is the, if you're looking at it this way, it's on the left. If you're looking at it this way, it's the right one. But either way, you just start at that corner and we're off. Okay, 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now, the other thing that I want to mention before I start, when you do tuck in your raw edges to go ahead and sew them shut, just make sure that you tuck them enough where they're going to get sewn together, because sometimes we leave, or at least I do, I leave them too close to the surface, and then with my allowance, my seam allowance, it won't catch together, and then it's just going to leave it open. So it's kind of silly. So just make sure that you pressed it far enough where you're going to be able to close that shut. Okay, so order range seam allowance, we're gonna go. Okay, now I turn my fabric and I turn my potpourri to make sure it's on the other side. And this is why it's important for any larger spice that you put in there to be small enough for you to be able to move it in the little pillow and the little satchel. Because as you're moving all the spices and the rice and all this stuff, it makes it a lot easier for you to be able to get everything out of the way. Okay, perfect. So again, let's move this stuff. Okay, now, does anybody have any questions so far that I can help with? Anything? Okay. All right. Okay, safety red flag that I just thought about. When you're doing this, if you're using a machine that is reliant on your foot pedal, make sure you take your foot completely off of the pedal before you start rearranging your potpourri when you're sewing, because if you accidentally press it while you're there and your fingers there, you might get caught. So always make sure to take your whole foot off of your foot pedal, and that could avoid lots of injury. Okay. If you have a mechanical machine like, not a mechanical, a digital machine like mine, sometimes as a fail-safe, they won't allow you to start and stop your machine if your machine has the presser foot on the up position. So you see, that's my foot on the down position. If I press start, it says okay. But if it's on the up position and I try to press start, it'll probably not. That was a bad example, but it'll sometimes tell you that you can't. Okay, so it depends on your machine. It depends on what it's doing, but just make sure that you do not put your finger in it. So as a safety concern. All right, so we're at the end of my project here. Now I'm going to backstitch just to secure a little bit. Okay. Yeah, cut my thread. Wonderful. And we are done with our second satchel. So now you're gonna do this. You know, repeat all the steps. Depending on how many satchels you're gonna make, how many little pillows, and that's pretty much it. You have all your holiday pillows. You can put them again in a nice little box with all the presents, or you can just give them, you know, in a little bag. I don't know, or maybe you could tie a ribbon around the, you know, the set of them and be like, hey, here, you have smelly socks. But yeah, there's a lot of things that you can do. You know, be creative with it. But that's basically our tutorial today. Are there any questions at all that you might have regarding this or anything? I'll show you again the finished product. How long will the scent last? Okay, so the scent, it kind of depends on what you're using. If you're using just spices and you're not using an essential oil or anything like that, it can last anywhere from a couple of weeks to 3 weeks, depending on how much function that drawer gets. Because remember, if you're putting this in a drawer and you're opening and closing it, it's going to cause the scent to kind of just like leave the drawer every time you open and close it. So if it's a high function drawer, I would say about 2 to 3 weeks. Again, that's only if you're using spices. If you are using essential oils, it can last up to a month and a half. So yeah, so it kind of depends on the ingredients you're using. So if you are using the essential oils, it tends to last a little bit longer. If you're not, it might fade a little bit. Bulk spice, what about oils? Okay, so bulk spices, you can get them at your Price Clubs. You can get them either at Sam's or at BJ's, at Costco, or you can go to a Latin market like, say, a Compare or a Key Foods, and you can just buy them pretty cheap. Now, as far as the essential oils, I get mine from a friend of mine that just happens to sell essential oils. You can also get them through Whole Foods. They have a lot of essential oils too, or natural food markets. They have them as well. You can also go on Amazon and get some. There's a lot of different places, but a lot of the times you probably know somebody that sells them from catalog. So it kind of just depends. And I think I saw another question, but I don't know. Let me see if I can.
I didn't see another question, Maria.
No? Okay, good.
I think you got the 3 questions from Rita.
Okay.
Rita, did you make the project along with us today?
Great.
Perhaps she didn't hear me. I don't think there are any other questions. Oh, she plans on making several. Okay, great.
Cool.
So you're gonna, just so you know, we did record this today. So if you need to rewatch any section of it, it will be available on our YouTube station. The shortcut to that is mcpl.tv. And if you have any questions, you can certainly email me at gagliardi.amber@mcpllibrary.org. I'm putting that in the chat now. Maria also has directions that came with every kit. So if you want to share any of your projects, you can also email us and we would be thrilled to see them. So
yeah,
please do share.
Yes.
But
Okay.
I do not see any questions at this time. So Maria, thank you so much for leading us through this project.
You're
and
very
all
welcome.
your great tips. And we'll see you back soon for another sewing project.
Absolutely. I'll see you guys soon. Have a very, very, very happy holiday and a very happy new year. Yeah, happy 2021, everybody. Hopefully it'll be a lot better than 2020. But yeah, wishing you and all your family all, beautiful and wonderful things for the coming year. Bye, everybody.